You're listening to The Stephen Tauriello Show, building a platform of liberty for people in search of truth with a dash of hope and a life worth living. The Stephen Tauriello Show. And now, here's Stephen.
What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to the show. As always, thanks for tuning in. So, I'm going to tell you something pretty spooky. Something I was thinking about the other day. Is Starlink fulfilling a biblical prophecy? Now, I know, it sounds crazy, right? But hear me out here. So, there's a Bible verse that discusses people from all over the world going to Jerusalem. And it's in the book of Isaiah. And it's verse 2-3. And it says, "In the last days, the mountain of the Lord's temple will be established as the highest of the mountains. It will be exalted above the hills, and all the nations will stream to it. Many people will come and say, 'Come, let us go to the mountain of the Lord, to the temple of the God of Jacob. He will teach us his ways, so that we may walk in his path. The law will go out from Zion, the word of the Lord from Jerusalem.'" And so this passage is often interpreted as a prophecy about a future time when Jerusalem will be a center of worship and instruction for people from all nations. Now, the reason why I say Starlink may be fulfilling that prophecy is because the idea, the main goal for Starlink is to give people the ability to have free internet no matter where they're at in the entire world. Whether they're in the middle of the ocean or in the middle of the Amazon jungle, they will be able to pull out their phone or tablet or whatever device they have, and they will be able to see what is happening in Jerusalem. That, ladies and gentlemen, is pretty crazy. I mean, I guess it all depends on how you interpret it, but I'm telling you, when I seen the Starlink satellites flying over my house, that is what I thought of. And my neighbor mentioned a verse in the Bible about how in the book of Isaiah where they said that all the people of the world will one day have their eyes on Jerusalem, seeking the word of the Lord. I'm like, whoa. So I put two and two together. I'm like, that is wild, dude. So I don't know. Is Elon Musk fulfilling a biblical prophecy and he doesn't even know it? That was just something I wanted to share with you, something that was on my mind yesterday. I was thinking about it yesterday and I'm like, man, that is wild. So I wanted to share that with you guys. That's the kind of stuff that goes through my mind, man. Weird stuff like that. But, it's it could be anything. Sometimes these phrases, you find keywords and keywords kind of trigger your memory, and really the conscience, the people's brains can make connections in the most unusual places. So maybe that's what it is. Maybe it's not. Maybe it is fulfilling a biblical prophecy. I don't know. But, there is correlation. So when the passage says it will be exalted above the hills and all nations will stream to it, that to me makes quite a connection. So anyways, on to some of the latest, greatest news in our country today. So I got an article here, hat tip to John Solomon over there at Just the News. No, hat tip to Charlotte Hazard over there at Just the News, John Solomon's joint. Says GOP is optimistic about impeaching New Mexico Governor Grisham over gun order. All they need is 12 Democrat votes. So I said this from day one, that this woman, the moment she announced that essentially an edict, she needed to be impeached. And I actually went a step further, and I said she should have been arrested for actively and knowingly violating the Constitution. It's people like her that are the most dangerous to this country. I mean, you know what? You have to hand it to her, because at least she came out and told everybody what she was thinking. Instead of like most Democrats will just sit there and they'll do it behind your back. They try and hide it. So they try and violate the Constitution by subverting the Constitution, kind of like what Joe Biden's been doing pretty much his entire administration, whether that's through vaccine mandates, eviction moratoriums, now with the southern border. Just go down the list of examples. It's weird. I was on I was on social media the other day and I'm scrolling through and I see comments about how Democrats have to save the country from the fascist dictator Donald Trump. I'm like, whoa. I'm like, wait a minute. I'm like, first of all, we already had Donald Trump as a leader for 4 years, and the American people were more free during his 4 years than the Biden administration. So I left a comment. I said the country's never been closer to fascism than we are right now. And I said, just go down the list of examples since the Biden administration's been in office. I mean, we are no doubt closer to fascism now than we ever have been. So the correlations that these people make with Donald Trump really is a sickness, I think, because they really are blinded by their hatred for Donald Trump. You know, when I always say that Donald Trump could cure cancer and these people would impeach him for overpopulating the earth, that is a serious statement. That is something that I truly do believe would happen if Donald Trump were to cure cancer. That would somehow find some kind of something negative about it. And this is why I believe Democrats, they are supporting the Russia-Ukraine war. Democrats are not supporting. I'm not talking about the Democrat politicians. They're doing it for whole other reasons. They're doing it for money, corruption, you know, the military-industrial complex, lobbyists, the whole 9 yards. But the leftist Democrats, the people, the uninformed population, they support the war because they hate Putin. They hate Russia because of Donald Trump. This is, and I'm not even joking. This is really why these people support the war, the Russia-Ukraine war. Nothing more, nothing less. Because if they really cared about Ukraine, then they would have said, oh, good job, Donald Trump, for actually giving the Ukrainians Javelin missiles when they needed them, where Obama gave them blankets and, you know, you heard of the stories. So it's really amazing to me how people like this governor can just outright ban people's Second Amendment. And this is why it's so dangerous, is because the way that she said it. The way that she said it is exactly how Democrats feel about your rights. They feel like every right is not absolute. They feel like they can violate your rights depending if it's an emergency or not. And so what do? They just make up an emergency. They don't see your rights as an unalienable. They don't see your rights as God-given. They see your rights as given to you by government. So essentially, your rights are yours because the government allows you to have these rights. You know, they don't understand the concept of God-given rights. Why? Because most of them are secularists. Most of them don't even believe in God. And so this is really at their lack of faith. It really hits at the core of the issues with the Democrat Party and the radical leftists we're seeing today. And we talk about this all the time on the show. These people do not believe in God. And so that really is the core problem with, I think, in our society in general. I think the more you remove religion, the more you remove faith and religion from society, the worse things get. Because think of how depressed and miserable somebody must be thinking there's no life after death, thinking that you're only on this earth for a small little blip of time and then you just go bye-bye. I mean, you probably, you would probably feel like, okay, well, I need to make the best out of this life I can. I need to change the world. I need to give my life purpose. I need to give my life meaning. And this is why I will join the climate change movement, or this is why I will join the vaccine movement, or the mask movement, or BLM. These people always want to be a part of something because they don't believe in a higher power. So this is why they worship climate change, vaccines, government, whatever it is. And all this can be derived from them not believing in God. They do not have a religion. This is, like I said, the core issue with the radical leftists. G.K. Chesterton, a man that doesn't believe in God. It's not that he doesn't believe in nothing, it's that he'll believe in anything. And that describes the radical leftist. That describes the issue in our society today. So, and there's no doubt that less people go to church. I mean, I just seen a poll the other day, Pew Research, 25% of people go to church less today than they did just 10 years ago. There's a lot less people going to church, a lot less people that have faith. There's less people believing in God, and so on and so forth. And so what you have is a degradation of our society. a collapsing society because our founding principles and the foundational pillars to our beliefs of this country, essentially what this country was built around, is being destroyed. It's just eroding. And this is exactly how civilizations in the past collapsed. I think we did a show maybe 3 or 4 months ago. I can't remember which one it was. I'll have to look it up and see. But in that episode, we talked about, we were going over an article. It was a study done by a very, very in-depth study that was going through the connections of the ancient civilizations and how they collapsed. And the one thing that they all had in common was that the society stopped believing in their founding principles. Then soon after, they collapsed. And so this is no different than the United States. It's unfortunate to say it, folks, and I really hate to. I never thought I'd say this in my life, but I truly do believe, as of right now, the United States is not the best country in the world anymore. I'm not saying that it can't be, and it was just not that long ago. But this is the level of damage that the Democrats and these radical leftists have caused this country. I mean, regardless of whether they stop now or not, they have done so much permanent damage already, and there's a lot of things that they broke that are unrepairable. They're irreversible. And so you have to wonder, like, is the United States the best country in the world? I don't know. That I never, ever thought I would ever say that in my entire life. But here I am. And so there is no doubt that our country is not going to last as long as the Roman Empire. I know that hurts to say too. The Roman Empire, I think maybe 1,500 years it was around, maybe 1,000 years. It just depends. No one really knows. It's not like it fell overnight. Every historian has their own date, but they say it lasted about 1,000 years. Folks, we're at 250 years? And we're already on the brink of collapse now. And a lot of people would say I'm being hyperbolic. I am not being hyperbolic at all. When I say that we are on the brink of collapse, we are on the brink of collapse. And you just look around. All you have to do is just look around. You have two factions in this country that have nothing in common anymore. Nothing. You have conservatives and you have Democrats. And then there's the liberals. They're in between. And just like Dennis Prager always says, and I admire that man, he's like the wise grandpa I never had. There is a distinguishable difference between a leftist and a liberal. Though they both vote Democrat, the liberals' ideologies do not align with the leftists. They align more with conservatives than they do leftists. However, they hate Republicans, so they never vote Republican. They vote Democrat. And so I think it's very important that we distinguish the two from leftists and liberals. Most of the time on this show, we're talking about leftists. So the more that leftists remove the foundational pillars, the more they remove the foundational principles that hold up this country, which is God. Yeah. I mean, God is, faith is on almost every part of this country. The country itself was built around the book of Deuteronomy. And so even a lot of most of our ethics, most of our laws, most of the foundational pillars that we have for this country all came from Rome. A lot of them, and granted, the founders took a lot of pieces from a lot of different cultures and civilizations and stuff like that. But it was mainly based around the Roman Republic, and then obviously not exactly the same, and then also God, religion, faith. And so, like I say, the more they remove faith and religion from society, the worse things get. We may win this election. We can win this election, and that's great. And Republicans would have power for 4 years, and then what? Yeah, we can have a Supreme Court majority now, but what happens 10 years, 15 years, 20 years down the road. That may not always be that way. May not always be the case. And if Democrats had their way, it would be the case right now. They would pack that court quicker than you know what. They'd be packing that court yesterday. So the key problem I think we face in this country is we have to get back to our roots. We have to. How you do that is a complex situation, but it's not anything what we can't handle. As Americans, we can handle anything. The problem is you have a party, you have the leftists that have essentially hijacked the Democrat Party and have removed those foundational principles, the separation of church and state. That was extremely damaging to this country. You know, believe it or not, when I was in elementary school, we had a little building right outside the school that we went to in 4th grade, 5th grade, and for 1 hour every day, the class would go out. I can't remember the teacher's name, but she was a teacher for the school, but they had it like in a little trailer outside of the school. And a sweet little old woman, I remember. And we would go there for 1 hour, and she would preach to us. We would say the Lord's Prayer every single day in that class. And then when the class was up, the kids would leave and go back into class, and then another class would go in. Sweet little old woman with a Bible. And then she would just teach us faith. She would read the Bible to us every day in school. Folks, things are getting more complicated because faith and religion is being removed from our society. If people want to, if conservatives really want to conserve this country, then we have to conserve the founding principles this country was built on. And those principles was faith in God. And until we start that process, then, you know, I'm not going to say that it's all over with, but we need to change the mindset. We need to go back. We need to gain ground. We have to start pulling this rope back the other way. It's this game of tug of war that always pops up in my head when I talk about these situations. This game of tug of war, and I feel like there's the leftist Democrats and the conservative Republicans just pulling on this rope, and this rope is so tight. And in the middle is this red rope, just like any tug of war game you've played. And once you get that red rope across either line, then you make a fundamental change to the country. And right now, the conservatives have been pulling on this rope so tight, and so hard. They have their biggest hitters in the back. You know, they have people like Donald Trump in the back and Ted Cruz and all these big hitters, Clarence Thomas, are all in the back pulling on this rope. We're all up towards the front. But the Democrats seem to be inching us closer and closer and closer to their line. And every once in a while, we'll gain some ground back our way. But we've been playing this game of tug of war, I would probably say, for the last 50 years. And in the middle of that rope is a cut. There's a cut in the rope, and the harder and harder we pull, the more and more that rope frays, and it starts to break. And when that rope breaks, that means you have the collapse of the country. So right now there's a cut in the rope. It's fraying. We're still pulling on both sides. And look, it's certainly not good. But what we need is more heavy hitters on our side. This is why I made the show. This is why I created the podcast, is because I want to contribute something to this fight. I want to give it everything I got, because in the end, when I'm sitting next to the fire with my grandkids and they ask me, where was I and what did I do during these days? I'm not going to sit there and tell them I did nothing. I want to sit there and tell them that I fought, and I fought as hard as I could, and I did everything I could. And hopefully that day will never come. Hopefully that conversation by the fire with the grandkids will be, there was a point in time in this country's history that was very, very divided. It was very, very, very dangerous. I want to be able to tell them that the American people stood up, the American people fought, and we won. And that is why you have the country you do today. But ladies and gentlemen, we got to get some bigger hitters on our side. We have to get bigger hitters on our side because, yeah, we may gain a little bit of ground every once in a while. The Donald Trump administration we gained some ground, but the Democrats pulled all of that back. They got all of that ground back. And so not only do we need some heavy hitters, but we need to weaken the other side. We have to. I'm not saying kick sand up in their face or anything. I'm just saying we need to maybe convince them to come over to our side and help us. And that is happening. There's not a doubt in my mind. That is happening. I see it every day. I see it on social media. I see it on Twitter. I see it on Facebook. I see it out on the streets. I see it out in the regular world. I see it. I talk to people every single day. But is it enough? And is it fast enough? I don't know. But we need to pull harder. We need to get more heavy hitters on our side, and we need to try and convince the other side that they're welcome on this side. We need to convince the other side that they are pulling for the wrong team. I don't know if that's a solution. That's how I see it. Inside my head, that is how I see it. And that to me is a good strategy. Because ladies and gentlemen, we don't want the rope breaking. We don't. Neither side wants the country to collapse. Granted, leftists may think they do, and I think they do too. I think, in their minds, because these people never understand the unintended consequences of their ideologies. I think these people do want the system to collapse. They hate capitalism, they hate the founding of this country, and they want to refound the country. They want to recreate this country in an image that they want. They want to rebuild it in an image of their own. Whatever that is, their perfect utopia that they're always talking about, where there is no rich people. Instead of high tides raising all ships, it's just bring the ships at the top and just sink them down to the bottom with everyone else. That is what they want. This is how you explain open borders. There's no other explanation to open borders other than they want to bring everybody down to their level. And that's exactly what they're going to do. But what they don't realize is all they're doing is hurting the middle class. And so you're essentially deleting the middle class, and all you're going to be left with is the really rich and the poor. They're bringing us to a very bad spot. This whole country should be nothing but middle class. And then, the people that work hard and so on and so forth, they're at the top. This system, capitalism, is not perfect, folks. It's not. Nobody ever said capitalism is perfect. But capitalism is the only system known to date, ever used throughout history, that has brought more people out of poverty and allowed prosperity amongst the most people. But it's not perfect. Nothing is perfect. But it's certainly not bad enough to where we should destroy it and destroy everybody's lives and rebuild from the ground up like these people want to do. And so what we need to do is trying to just convince them, bring them over to our side and let them know if you are for liberty, you are for freedom, you are for individual rights and freedom, then you need to be pulling for this side. That is something that I try to do every day on this show. And so I want to get back to the story because it's this story that led me to talk about this. It's what made me think about all this. So the New Mexico state legislature GOP members say that they are feeling optimistic about the potential impeachment for Democratic Governor Michelle Luann Grisham after she declared a public health emergency over gun violence earlier this month. So in early September, state representatives John Block and Stephanie Lord called for the governor's impeachment after she suspended open and concealed carry of firearms in the city of Albuquerque for a 30-day period. The suspension has been blocked by a federal judge. Almost immediately, the judge came out and blocked it, which everybody kind of knew that was going to happen, but that's not the point. The point is that she tried to do it. She essentially moved the Overton window. This is what these people do. When I talk about the left and the right, when I talk about the left making gains in the tug of war, this is how they do it. They normalize things. They're constantly moving the Overton window to the left. And so now that this governor tried it, she essentially normalized it, and so now other people are going to try it. This is exactly what Alvin Bragg did when indicting Donald Trump. Nobody wanted to be the first on the dance floor. Alvin Bragg did it, and so therefore it normalized it, It still shocked the country either way, but because he normalized it, it pretty much just set that precedent in stone so that it's perfectly okay for anybody else to do it. And that is why you just had this waterfall of indictments right after Alvin Bragg. And I do think it was all orchestrated. I think all these people, Big Fannie Willis, I think Jack Smith, I think all these people coordinated it and talked with Alvin Bragg and had him pull up his BS case first so that it got rid of some of the shock and awe. It was like soft punches in the gut before the uppercut to the chin. And I think that it was all orchestrated. I think it was all coordinated with one another. This is why I think it's extremely important for Kevin McCarthy and the Republicans to get internal communications. Subpoena all of it. You should, and I know these people aren't dumb enough to, leave messages and communicate like that, but maybe they are. This is why I'm not a huge fan of impeachment. I think it's important to do it, but if it's not going to come back with justice, Democrats are not going to vote to impeach Joe Biden. So what you do is that you show the American people just how corrupt this system is by revealing and uncovering their coordinated effort to interfere in our federal elections. And the way you can do that is by giving subpoenas for the internal communications of the DOJ and all these different attorney generals in these states and these DAs. Because I'm telling you, all of it was coordinated. It was all coordinated because they wanted to, with Alvin Bragg, they wanted to move the Overton window. Essentially, they wanted to get their foot in the door. And then once he did it, and then it just went kaboof. They just flooded the zone with indictments. Because they normalized it. This is what these people do. They normalize things that should not be normal. They normalize the abnormal. And they always do this with everything. And so this is what I think this governor did. She was pulling an Alvin Bragg. She did it so that it normalizes it. It removes some of the shock and awe. And this is why I say she should have been arrested, but at the very least impeached. So Judge David Urias of the U.S. District Court of New Mexico said in his September 13th decision that the 30-day suspension in Albuquerque and the surrounding Bernalillo County contravened a U.S. Supreme Court ruling that precedent establishes a constitutional right to carry a weapon in public for self-defense purposes. On that basis, Urias said that issuing a TRO, a temporary restraining order, to prevent the violation of a constitutional right would be in the public's interest. Grisham is facing other lawsuits as a result of her emergency order, which she declared after the shooting of an 11-year-old boy outside a baseball stadium. Listen, these people, we need, as Republicans and conservatives, and obviously supporters of the Second Amendment, we need to take control in this gun issue. If the Republicans want to stop this constant bombardment from the Democrats and their constant their constant incrementalizing on our Second Amendment rights, we need to take the wheel. We need to take over. We've tried it these people's way for a long time. It's not working. So Republicans and conservatives need to take the wheel. Go in there and start doing what we know would work. These people don't do anything but just create more laws that make more law-abiding gun owners into criminals every freaking law that they pass. It's not working, folks. It's not working. But they don't understand. The reason why they don't understand is because they want to violate people's rights. They want to strip the guns away from law-abiding citizens. They don't want guns in this country, period. The only people that they want to have guns is police. And really, they don't even want that. You've seen it. You've seen it. They want police to shoot people in the legs. They want them to carry tasers and stun guns instead of pistols. These people are nuts. They don't get it. This is why I always say they never understand the unintended consequences of their ideologies, of their ideas. They're awful ideas. Their ideas suck. And so what Republicans and conservatives need to do is say, stop, enough. This is not a gun problem. This is a people problem. They seem to think by taking all the guns away from all the gun owners, all the law-abiding gun owners, there's not going to be gun violence in this country. They are so freaking wrong, and the consequences of their stupid ideas will be drastic. Oh, it will be bad. It would not be good, folks. It would not be good at all. And so we can't allow these people to incrementalize on constantly moving the Overton window to the left on these gun issues, on every issue. On every issue. In this game of tug of war, they're constantly gaining ground on every single right that we have. And so I think it's vital that we make that they make an example out of this governor and impeach her ass and get her out of that office. Send a clear message to every other would-be governor that wants to strip the American people's Second Amendment right away. Send a message loud and clear that the American people will have none of it. We already know what's going to fix the issue. We already know what will work. But the Democrats refuse to accept any of the ideas. They don't want to do it, folks. They would rather take the guns away from law-abiding gun owners. These people would rather violate your Second Amendment rights than just fix the problem in the schools. That's what they're worried about, right? They're worried about the schools. That would solve a lot. Fix the schools. The mental health crisis in this country is off the charts. And these people don't understand it's because of their stupid policies. When you make people desperate, people do desperate things. This country is the most depressed now than it ever has been. There's more people committing suicide than there ever has been. There's more teens committing suicide than there ever has been. So what is the issue? You're never going to get rid of all the guns. The only thing they will do is they will get people hurt and killed. This is what all their policies do. All the Democrats' policies do is hurt people and make people's lives harder. What they're going to do is they're going to strip all the guns away from the law-abiding gun owners, and only criminals will have the guns. The criminals and then the government, the police state. You'll have a police state and an unarmed population, exactly what the founders feared the most. We do not have our guns for hunting. Our guns are not for self-defense. Our guns are to fight back a tyrannical, fascistic government. That is what they gave it to us for. These people, the Democrats don't understand that the founders, the framers of this country, just got done liberating our nation. I mean, do you really think they put the Second Amendment in there for people to defend themselves and to go hunting? Of course not. So this is what we need to send the message that if we just try it our way and show some positive effects and show them that it can be done, I'm telling you, it would convince Democrats to come pull for our side. And this is how you do it. You do it with policies. The fight that they're having in this government right now with McCarthy and continuing the spending of the government is exactly the type of policies I'm talking about. And you know what? It's not easy. It's not easy. I understand there really is no good situation in this battle. But showing the American people that it's the Republican Party that is actually trying to cut spending, that is actually trying to shrink the government, they will convince Democrats to come pull for our team. But look, just, spending another bill, doing going with the status quo for another 30 days or a month is not convincing anybody. The only thing it's convincing people of is that Republicans are perfectly fine being the controlled opposition. The same thing they've always been. This is why we're constantly losing ground in this game of tug-of-war. And so Republicans, send a message. This New Mexico governor, Grisham, should be impeached immediately, with every single person voting in favor for impeachment. Every single one. Is that going to happen? No. But will they get 12 Democrats? I think they're going to. Because here's what this guy says. So he said earlier this week, Lord and Block sent out a certification petition to all 112 legislators calling for an extraordinary impeachment session. Barnalillo County Sheriff John Allen, Barnalillo County District Attorney Sam Bregman, and Albuquerque Mayor Tim Keller, all Democrats, have said they will not enforce the open and concealed carry ban. So Block said the governor brought the impeachment call upon herself due to her unconstitutional actions. And this is what he says, quote, I think it's so cut and dry. We don't have to make a case to impeach the governor. She made that herself. We just have to show the Democrats the Constitution. She violated the Constitution that she made an oath to protect. Voters don't like politicians who say one thing and do the other. The National Rifle Association last week filed a lawsuit against Grisham and was backed by every New Mexico GOP member of the State House and Senate, the Republican Party of New Mexico, and the Libertarian Party of New Mexico. So Block says he backs all the lawsuits against Grisham. He said that all elected members in the New Mexico legislature, whether they be Democrat or Republican, have an oath to the Constitution. Quote, you either stand with the governor and her radical take that violated the Constitution or the oath you took to your office, Block said. There is no middle ground here. Nope. Grisham's press secretary Caroline Sweeney said in a statement in response to the impeachment move that, quote, these legislators are more focused on impeachment than working to develop real solutions to save New Mexican lives. I'm so sick of these people's double standard, man. So sick of their hypocrisy. These people can impeach all day long. They'll impeach, impeach, impeach. We just went through 4 years of impeachment investigations and congressional investigations and spying campaigns for Donald Trump. And then these people have the gall to talk about how impeachment's wasting time instead of saving people's lives. You know, every single day a Democrat is not in Congress is a day that Americans get to keep more of their freedoms. There's no doubt about it. So he says on the legislative front, lawmakers leading the impeachment charge plan to get a dozen Democrats on their side. Once we get in session, we would need to flip 12 Democrats to our side, which I think is doable. Block said in a phone interview with Just the News. In the Senate, we would need a 2/3 vote. Yeah, so we'll see. But that is exactly what needs to happen. Send the message to everybody that violating the American people's rights is not okay. Okay? I mean, it is so, by Republicans and conservatives doing that and showing the liberals that it's actually the Republicans trying to defend your rights, trying to defend your liberties. They will come to our side and they will start helping us pull in this game of tug of war. That is the only thing you can do. Trying to convince these people any other way through debate, maybe. You got to respect the debate. I get it. You know, but the only way they're going to understand is fight fire with fire. Show these people that it's the Republican Party that is actually trying to help this country. Now, you know what? I hate to say that. I really do, because the Republicans in this Congress suck. Most of them are cowards. But I think libertarians' ideologies align more with conservatives than they do with Democrats, with leftists. They do. You know, these people, they don't want to see the sexualizing of the children in schools. They don't want to see people losing their Second Amendment right. Folks, there was a Gallup poll done just a couple weeks ago that said there's more people that support the Second Amendment right now than ever before. Why? Because the Democrats defund the police policies and the crime rates in these cities are going up. And so while simultaneously the Democrats' policies are increasing the crime rate, they want to decrease people's ability to defend themselves. These people are nuts. This is what leads to the type of destructions we are seeing now. This is what leads to the collapse of societies. The Democrat Party is filled with nothing but bad ideas. It's just the way it is. Is the Republican Party perfect? Absolutely not. I think everybody says that. There hasn't been a Republican or conservative I've ever talked to that has not admitted that the Republicans are not perfect. All of us say almost unilaterally the same thing, is that the Republican Party is the controlled opposition party. And so you're not going to find a person on the right side of the aisle. You're not going to find a Republican or conservative that says, yeah, the Republican Party is perfect. No. We all understand that it's not perfect. But there's only one side here that's trying to conserve this country and people's individual liberties and freedoms. The other side is trying to fundamentally change it. And I'm sorry, folks, you don't want to change that of which you love. People don't want to change things that they love. They don't. There's one party that's for censorship. It's one party that is for violating people's rights. And I'm not talking about just the Second Amendment rights. I'm talking about all your rights. Your First Amendment, your Second Amendment, your Fifth and Sixth and 10th Amendment. These people, just go down the list of rights. These people want to take them all. They don't want you to have due process. They want autocracy with mob rule. They want mobocracy. You don't want due process. It's not innocent until proven guilty. Now, all of a sudden, it's guilty until proven innocent. Just like with this Menendez character, this Democrat that's getting indicted. We don't know. We can't take what the DOJ is on face value. We can't take what they say on face value. You know, it sounds bad from them, but we don't really know the facts, and this is why it is so dangerous for people to take anything these people say on face value. Because by what he said, it sounds bad, but we don't know. But the one thing I did notice about the Menendez indictment is that the difference between the treatment. I mean, what he did sounds bad if it is true, but look at what they're actually doing. They actually indicted him. They got warrants. They got search warrants. They did an investigation. The special counsel. They haven't done anything like that for the Bidens. And it's almost identical to what the Bidens were doing. And yet this guy gets indicted, investigated, impeached, whatever it is. Has to resign, forced to resign, whatever it is. But when you read through the story, and we'll dive into it a little bit more in the next show, when you read into the story, it's almost identical to what the Bidens are doing, except there's no shell companies, and the Bidens was dealing with way more money, way more money. This guy had hundreds of thousands of dollars in his pocket, I guess, in cash. But the Bidens would probably have the same thing if they would actually investigate it. There hasn't been no proper investigation, no special counsel, no warrants, no nothing. And in fact, the warrants they did get to look into the Biden family's corruption, they got stonewalled and obstructed by the Department of Justice. We now have a Justice Department that is running a cover-up operation, a cover-up scheme for the Bidens while simultaneously persecuting Biden's political opposition. You don't have that with Menendez. And so, granted, yeah, the narrative you're going to hear from the Democrats is, oh, see how Democrats aren't complaining about the Justice Department and all this and calling it a witch hunt? No, but you know what it does show? It shows that there's two standards in our justice system. It shows that Menendez can do stuff and be properly investigated and get search warrants and have his home searched and have his bank records searched. But when the Bidens do it, there's none of the such. There's nothing. These people should have been investigated years ago for all this. Whatever the hell Bill Barr was doing, I have no idea. Maybe he was in on it. Shame on Bill Barr. Shame on that slob. I used to like Bill Barr until he turned into a cowardice backstabber. The guy is a bureaucrat. He is exactly what is wrong with this country. A guy who eats entirely way too much. He is lazy. He thinks he's smarter and better than everybody. And he's done nothing. Why wasn't Bill Barr properly investigating the Bidens? Hell, it looks like he was part of the cover-up operation. This is what the American people are trying to get back. But there's only one side trying to reveal it. The other side is constantly trying to cover it up. So let the message be, Democrats, if you're a Democrat, if you want to get to the truth, if you're even in search of the truth, then being in the Democrat Party is not the right party. The Democrat Party is not in pursuit of the truth. They don't even value truth. These people are the same people that say men can give birth. They literally deny truth. They're living in an alternate reality. So what we have to do is convince them that if you are in search of truth, if you are in the pursuit of truth, then conservatism is what you need to support. Because look, I was a Democrat. The Overton window moved so far left and now I'm a conservative. Imagine that. I was a Democrat and supported secure borders. I supported immigration the legal way, and so did all the other Democrats. But these people went so far off to the left, I just stayed. I was politically homeless. And then here I find myself conservative. Speaking on behalf of conservatism, it's crazy. That's how far left the Democrat Party has taken this place. And I wouldn't say the Democrat Party than it is the leftists. But here we are. Look at the damage. This is why you have so much damage being done to this country. Is because these people they used to be incrementalizing, but now they're taking huge steps. And the conservatives are tugging on this rope as hard as they can. And it is fraying in the middle. That's how much force is being pulled on both sides. And so impeach this governor, send a message that this will not be accepted by either party. This should be rejected wholeheartedly by both parties, Democrats and Republicans. Every single Democrat should vote for the impeachment of this woman for purposely violating people's Second Amendment rights. It's not even negotiable. It's not even a question. Every single Democrat should be impeaching this woman. But I'm afraid what's going to happen is she just normalized issuing a public health emergency, and in that public health emergency, just violating people's rights. Like for 30 days? What is this? It doesn't even make sense. This governor actually believes that it's her that allows you to have the rights that you have. And how much do you want to bet that this woman hasn't went to church a day in her life? This is the problem. These people do not realize that these are God-given rights to the people. Not Governor Grisham's rights that she's giving to the people, God-given rights. And they are to not be violated. And these people, the Democrat Party is constantly violating people's rights all the time. And they're becoming more and more emboldened by it. Just like I said, due process, forget about it. You will not be innocent until proven guilty. You are guilty until you prove your innocence. Nancy Pelosi said that herself on live TV in front of the whole world. That Donald Trump's going to have to prove his innocence. What? Like, this is what I'm talking about. This is how these people operate. They slowly move the Overton window to the left. And I consider the Overton window being this long rope in this giant game of tug of war. And right now, the Democrats are gaining ground, but the conservatives are putting up a fight, and we're getting some heavy hitters on our side. But it's not so much of getting more heavy hitters. That's great, but we need to start pulling people from their side over to our side. That is the only way we can do it. And anything that you can do, talk to your friends, talk to your family. Let them know. Be like, hey, did you hear about the New Mexico governor suspending people's Second Amendment rights? And then explain to them. I just persuaded somebody the other day on the Second Amendment. The guy came out and said, yeah, but, there's no need to have assault rifles and 30-round magazines. I said, well, so in your mind, what do you think people should be allowed to have? And then just start with there. Anytime you want to debate somebody, if you are in a conversation like this, you need to repeat their concerns back to them just so you clearly understand it. Because a lot of times what happens is the debate gets started off on a weak foundation, a straw man argument. And so clarify with them exactly what their concerns are. And that is a good way to start a debate and to convince people. This is what you need to be in the game of convincing them. And the way you do that is just by starting the conversation. Don't be shy. These are the conversations that need to happen. The founders and framers intended for people to talk like this. This is why people were given their First Amendment right. It was the most important right to them. Not just to speak up and petition the government, but to talk amongst one another. This is how situations like this get resolved. And, what do you know? The guy was like, you know what? You're right. You're right. There's absolutely no reason why the government should be taking away people's Second Amendment right. Because it's not just self-defense. It's not just hunting. It's to prevent the tyrannical takeover of a country. It's something the founders knew very, very well because they just liberated a nation from a monarchy. So there was one more thing I wanted to get in here, and I'm going to be working on a show right after this. As always, I wanted to real quick. So one last thing. So I seen this just a little bit ago, and I wanted to talk about it. So speaking of, sticking to our roots and our foundational principles, that also goes for discipline. So I found this very interesting. So school district votes to bring back paddling for disobedient students. Yeah. So schools vote to reintroduce paddling for misbehaving kids in the 21st century. As many parents know, disciplining one child can be hard enough, let alone a whole class filled with them. This is the overwhelming reality of teachers who have to control classrooms of up to 30 or more kids daily. Discipline misbehaving kids is one of the challenges schools face, and teachers have been using different strategies to keep students in line. A few decades back, the use of physical punishment, hitting or whipping students, was common in schoolhouses across the U.S., but in recent years, less violent punishments have replaced physical discipline. The number of misbehaving kids also increased. This is why a few Texas public schools have reintroduced corporal punishment, bringing back paddling. Under the new policies, teachers can use a wooden paddle to punish disobedient students, administering one paddle for each misdemeanor. So at the time of enrollment, parents sign whether they consent to have the punishment used on their child. This needs to be done in written and verbal consent to avoid any complaints in the future, and many parents support the new policy. This is crazy. Let me know what you think about this. Send me an email. It's StephenTaurielloShow@gmail.com. Let me know what you think about paddling. I, for one, I'm iffy on it. because I actually have personal experience with paddling because I was actually paddled myself in elementary school. Yes, the same school that had the church classroom that we went to every single day for 1 hour to learn about God and Christianity and faith. So that school, I actually got paddled. I can't even remember what I did, but I remember I got paddled, and yeah, it hurt like hell. I mean, I didn't have to it was over the pants, and it's not like the guy. It was my principal, Mr. Sanders. I can't remember what I even did, but this school was hardcore. But I will say it was a 4-star elementary school. It was called Green Township Elementary School. Well, it was 4 stars at the time. We grew up out in the country. This was a tiny little schoolhouse, not very big. I couldn't tell you how many students, not many, but it was a rural elementary school out in the country in Green Township, not very many kids, and there was corporal punishment. And if you did something bad, you got whacked with a paddle. And apparently it was pretty normal. It was the first time ever seeing this because I had come from bigger cities and bigger schools. I'd never seen that before. So I actually got paddled, and you know what? It worked. From that time on, I don't remember doing anything. I never misbehaved. I never got out of line, and neither did any other student. And I do have to say this as well. In high school, all my fellow schoolmates that went to that elementary school, Green Township, they all turned out to be pretty good kids. All throughout our school careers, all throughout high school, as far as I know, all the kids turned out to be very good. Now, the problem I see with this is my dad was pissed off that I got paddled by the principal and they weren't informed. Pissed off. I can't remember, they had called him after. They called my parents after I got paddled to let them know, when it should have been the other way around. And then the parent will approve or disapprove. But that wasn't the case. And both my parents came and picked me up, and they were pissed off. And I understand where they're coming from. Essentially, they said, look, if my kid did something bad, you come to me, and I'll punish them. Nobody else should be laying a hand on my child. And so this is a gray area subject, and I want to know how my listeners feel. I want to know how you guys feel about it. Let me know, StephenTaurielloShow@gmail.com. Let me know if you support it or not. I'm not really sure. Listen, can corporal punishment be a net positive? Of course. Could it be negative? Of course. This is one of those tricky situations. So I guess we'll have to see how these schools in Texas turn out, because I don't know. You got to correlate something to the really bad behaviors that are increasing in school these days. I mean, kids are off the chain in schools. You guys see it. You guys see it scrolling through social media. You see how off the chain the kids are these days. Doing stuff to teachers I would never, ever in my dream think about doing. I mean, some of these kids are cursing out their teachers, slapping them around, throwing trash at them. It's like, my God, man. And a lot of this has to do with the parenting as well. I think we all can agree on that. I mean, obviously, if you're not going to have discipline in the household, you're probably going to have pretty wild children. I don't know. Because my wife, she was never disciplined. Well, she was disciplined, but she was never spanked. She was never physically punished growing up, and she turned out fine. So I guess it just really depends. It's a very interesting topic, but you know what? I like how they're doing it. Allow the paddling by the teachers, but only by parental consent, and that consent must be in verbal and written form. And then there you go. But see, to me personally, I don't know how I would handle someone else, laying a hand on my child. I don't know. But at the same time, would it be a learning experience? Will it teach the child a lesson and make them behave in school? I don't know. I mean, surely you can. I mean, is a parent really going to discipline their kid for misbehaving in school more than they would discipline their kid misbehaving at home? I don't know. There's so many questions to this issue, but very interesting, and I'm going to keep an eye on it and see how the school does. But let me know what you think. StephenTaurielloShow@gmail.com. Send me an email. Let me know what you think about this. Is it a good thing, bad thing? Leave me a comment. Let me know. So, all right, ladies and gentlemen, that's all we got for today's show. I hope you guys had a great weekend. And guess what? It's Monday. Like I always say, Mondays suck, but they are a time for a reset for the week. And it's not all bad on Mondays, but trust me, by the time you're listening to this, I will be at work busting my ass just like you. So don't feel too bad. But anyways, I'm going to be working on a show right after this. We got a lot of awesome things to talk about. It's going to be a good show. I think I'm going to hit on a couple different subjects. I want to talk about this Ibram X. Kennedy investigation. Yeah, the anti-racism guy, the guy that couldn't define what racism was. His foundation, his institution's being investigated for losing millions of dollars. I guess the money's all gone and they don't know where it went. Surprise, surprise. Much like BLM spending all their money on mansions. And Bongino says BLM stands for buying large mansions. I have to agree with him. So, yes, as always, thank you guys for tuning in. Make sure you share the show with your friends and family and let them know about this game of tug of war that we're in. And like I said, try and conversate with somebody that you know is a liberal or even a Democrat, even a leftist. The best thing we can do is communicate with our fellow citizens and then just go from there. Just show them and ask them if they are in the pursuit of truth. And if they are, ask them what truth they're looking for. So, all right, ladies and gentlemen, as always, thank you guys for tuning in. I want you guys to have a good day. Have a great week. I'll talk to you guys here in a little bit. God bless you. And God bless America. You guys have a good day. Bye-bye.